ago is 2 weeks to the day from when we made our first batch of mead in our potions last video. So I checked on it earlier on and it still seems to be bubbling away, so I think there's still some fermentation going on. So I'm going to leave it for a while instead of racking it tomorrow. I'm going to keep an eye over the next few days or maybe even another week and see what happens with that. But I do want to start a new batch, which is what you just saw. So there's two different ways of doing it, or kind of two schools of thought on it. When I watched the video from the Modern Rogue, Anthony said that if you're flavouring it and you put your fruit into the primary fermentation, which is what you just saw, then the outcome can be a bit hand wavy, I think they said. So whether that's flavour or alcohol wise, because there's so much sugar and a lot of it's coming from the honey, and a lot of it's coming from the fruit, especially the way I did it there. So I don't know what will happen, which is why he kind of recommends make your mead in the primary and then put your flavourings or fruits in on the secondary fermentation and let that affect the mead you've already got. Fair point, and he knows more about this than I do. But I also saw a video from, I think it was Mead, and he took a big batch and he split it in two, and in one half of it he put pineapples in the primary fermentation, and the other half he put pineapples only in the secondary fermentation. Now obviously it depends on the honey he used, on the yeast he used, probably even on the water he used, and he did specifically say himself that it was just for pineapples, so your mileage may vary. But out of those two in the video I saw, he seemed to get better results out of the primary pineapple mead rather than the secondary pineapple mead. So I said, screw it, I'm going to throw a load of fruit into the primary on this one to see what happens, which means after 2, maybe 3 weeks, I'll give it a taste test when I'm going to rack it and put it into a secondary fermentation. I still have fruit left over, so I might even add more to it then, depending, and just see what happens. It's a big experiment, really. Also, I did use an entire sachet of yeast this time. The reason for that being there was as much honey as we used the last time, but so much more sugar from the fruit that I wasn't sure what it was going to do. So I figured there's tons of sugar there ready to be eaten. Throw in all the yeast. That's the yellow label one that we had the last time. So it was a sparkling wine yeast, so it has a fairly high alcohol tolerance as well. So hopefully what's going to happen there is there's enough sugar from the fruit and honey to keep it going, and it can tolerate enough alcohol so that as the sugar levels come down and the alcohol levels go up, the yeast itself will actually last a good long time. So we'll see how that goes, and after, as I said, a couple of weeks, I'll keep an eye on it, and if it's still bubbling away like the first one, I'll leave it a bit longer, and when we put it into the secondary fermentation, then I might even add in the other half of the first sachet we used from the last batch, just to see what happens if we add fruit or like add more yeast to the secondary fermentation. So that one will take longer if I do all that, and again, it's a bit of an experiment. This is only my second batch ever, and I'm new to the whole thing, so stick with me and we'll see how it goes. Bye.